Hey everybody, welcome back to You Are What You Love. I am your host, Marissa Tandon, and today my guest is a very revered person in my life now. She is an incredibly cool person. You have heard her work on television or on TikToks about her work because she writes for the hit TV show Riverdale. She's also an amazing DJ that you can see spinning around Los Angeles as DJ XC. But professionally and unprofessionally, she goes by Chrissy Maroon. Welcome to the show.
Oh my God, hi. I'm blushing. That was so sweet.
Right off the cuff, you know? I just
Yeah.
like, what's cool about Chrissy? And those are all the things that came to mind.
Oh my God. Should I say some things that are cool about you?
Oh my God, we've never done that before, but you can if you want to.
Okay, first of all, this podcast is very cool. I love the wide array of guests that you have, but also the knowledge that you have on each topic that each person talks about. I love that you're a writer also. That's very cool. And you have an amazing personality.
Well, thank you so much. Now I feel like we should go on a date.
Oh my God. Yes. We are drinking wine.
I know.
So
It's
is
the
this a
late
date?
night version. I appreciate that. I will say it's the first time I was like, you know, in high school when you spend way too much time on the internet and then you're like, man, I really should be learning math. I'm never going to use this in life. And now I really feel like I should have been spending more time on the internet because this is the first time where I feel like so far there's only been one topic someone's brought up that I've been like, ooh, I need to research that.
Ooh, what was it?
It was Daniel Kibblesmith, who writes for Marvel. He did The Wizard of Speed and Time, which I had never seen because it's like a stop motion animation movie from
Ooh.
the 80s, I believe.
I need to watch it.
It's on YouTube for free. It's really cool. I actually learned a lot, and I still really enjoy when people bring things up that I haven't seen before because then you get to explore something completely new. And this one was so cool. So highly recommend it. And if
Okay.
you haven't listened to that episode, definitely people at home check that one out because I learned so much about the idea of stop motion animation and then that movie itself, how a movie at 5 can bring you into this amazing career that he's had. So it was one of my favorite episodes. We had such a cool time.
So he saw that when he was 5.
Yeah, he watched it on his dad rented the Blockbuster tape.
That's really cool.
Well, actually, that's a great segue. What are we talking about that I hope you didn't watch when you were 5, given the title? But if you did, that's totally okay.
I didn't watch when I was 5 because you know what? I don't even know when it came out. I feel like Scream came out in 1999. Am I right?
I can Google it, and I think you're correct. Now I do feel like I should.
We're talking about the Scream movie franchise. Should have said that, but
Yeah,
yes.
it's okay. Let's see. Scream came out in 1996.
Ooh, so I would have been. I'm not going to tell the podcast how old I am.
That's okay. We've had people of all ages and
Great.
ranges. But I like the idea that it's you could have not been alive. You could have been 100
I was
years
alive.
old. Yeah. It's audio, so no one will ever know.
Yeah, that's so true.
Do you remember, so obviously you didn't watch it in your youth of baby age probably when it came out. But do you remember when the first time you saw the first movie was?
Yeah, I saw the first movie when I was a sophomore in high school with 2 of my best friends. We rented 3 movies from Blockbuster, all horror movies, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the remake, not the original. We should have rented the original. Scream, and God, I cannot remember the third one, but it was probably like The Ring or something
Oh,
like that, you know?
yeah.
We were like, let's have a horror movie marathon. And I have an aunt who's really into horror movies, and she recommended all these movies to us. And I remember we watched Texas Chainsaw first, and I was like, man, this is pretty gruesome and gross. And we watched Scream second, and I was like, whoa, this movie rules.
Yeah.
It just blew my mind, especially from the opening sequence of Drew Barrymore. You're like, oh my God, I know who she is. She's this big name. And then she just dies.
Yeah.
In the opening sequence, it's truly from the get-go, they're like, you don't know what you're about to watch.
Yeah.
So I appreciated that about that movie.
Were you a big horror movie fan before you watched Scream?
No, this was me dipping my toes into it.
Into horror in the first time?
Into horror, yeah. I had seen the occasional horror movies, but Yeah, this is when I was kind of like, "Let me see what this is all about."
Yeah.
I feel like that happens naturally in high school.
Yeah, I will be completely honest with you, horror movies scare the shit out of me, and so
Wait, have you seen any of the Scream movies?
I have, but I watched them because I knew we were doing this.
Well, I was gonna say, did I make you watch them?
Not in, like, a bad way, I so it's I horror movies, I think I watched part of Final Destination 4 or something like that, too young, and I really have, like, a memory of whatever movie it is, I have a crisp memory of one scene in it, which is, like, the log from the logging tree comes
I
through.
knew you were gonna say that.
And ever since, like, first of all, I move from behind those when I am driving and there's any sort of truck that has any sort of luggage, I will move. It doesn't matter how bad the traffic is or how far in the wrong lane or how close I am to my exit, I will not be behind one. And I saw that and I saw part of The Ring, and I think it was just that, like, I can't. It's like I have a thing about ghosts. I have a thing about
Ooh.
like, I really can't do it, but I love Halloween, like the concept of Halloween,
Mhm.
and I love very much, like, spooky nights. Like, I love Halloween Horror Nights, I love haunted houses, I love
Love.
all of that stuff. A horror movie or a ghost, I cannot do it.
I love that it's like a horror movie or a real ghost.
Yeah, a real ghost. A real I as a quick aside already, my sister and we went to the catacombs in Paris, and she really wanted to go, and I really was like, "I really do not wanna go." There are haunted bones underneath a city. I don't know why that sounds exciting to you. I don't wanna be there. Um, we waited in line for, like, a long period of time, and we went
You're getting
in.
more and more anxious
Yeah,
as you're
I was
waiting in
just like I was just
line.
like, I don't well, because it's also like I'm an older sister, so I was like, "I don't wanna be at this event, but I want you to get what you want out of this adventure."
Classic older
So
sister. Yeah, good
I'm
sister.
like, "I don't know what to do." I was like, "I hope we get in, but I also hope we don't." Like, everything about this is not what I want. And we were in the catacombs, which are, like, just literally, like, walls of bones, like, mazes of bones. I was already uncomfortable, and the girls that were in front of us were also American, and they were maybe they might have been teenagers, they were younger than me for sure. They were touching the bones, and I was like, first of all, there were rules when we walked in. They said, "Don't touch anything," and I don't know why you're touching them, and second of all, I'm gonna get haunted by association. Like, you're not far enough away that the ghost is gonna have I don't know what kind of directional vibes ghosts have, but I do know that I'm in, like, the splash zone of whatever
Whatever you're
might happen.
touching is
Yeah.
gonna come back to me.
Yeah, so
There's
that's how I
a
feel.
there's a horror movie, I think, about the catacombs called As Above, So Below or
Oh, yes.
something. Do you know what I'm talking
I do
about?
know what you're talking about.
And I think I don't know if they made a French version of the movie first and then an American version, or if they changed the ending for America,
Okay.
but I think the French version is, like, it ends and, like, everyone dies, and in the American version, they, like, get out, you know, or, like, something like that. I oh god, I wish
Yeah.
I knew, but
We'll have to
that was a scary movie
I would
also.
say we'll have to watch it, but
You won't
I
watch
won't
it.
watch it. I will not be watching that. Um, but I do think the scary movie genre has brought a lot to media. Like, I think there's so many little things which we'll get into because we've already kind of touched on the TV that our generation watched on MTV and how I think Scream kind of pulled into that space.
Mhm.
So we'll definitely get into that, but I do think the horror genre, despite my squeamishness, is a good spot. It's a good place for media.
I'm glad we're recording this in October too, so
I
it's, like,
know.
kind of
It's
perfect.
perfect. It's like the very beginning of spooky season. It's time to be spooky. Okay, so for Scream, you see Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the remake.
The remake.
You watch that first, then you
Mhm.
watch Scream.
Scream, yeah.
And so the remake, you were kind of like, "No."
I was
Yeah.
like, "This is, like, scary, but it's, like, not great."
Yeah.
But then Scream just, like, blew my mind. Like, the writing was well done, the acting was incredible, like, the twists and turns, Ghostface as a killer. First of all, it's, like, such a funny name, Ghostface. It's like Freddy, Jason, Ghostface. You know? It's, like, not your typical horror villain name. And I also loved that it was, like, a high school movie, which
Yeah.
I thought was really brilliant.
Yeah.
And then, of course, you had, like, Henry Winkler, which to us, because we went to Emerson College, he was, like, one of the most famous alumni. Everyone knows him as the Fonz.
Yep.
But, yeah, so I was like, "Love that." Actually, I wasn't in college when I saw it,
Yeah,
so now I'm just
you had
thinking
no
about
idea.
maybe I did just know him as the Fonz.
Yeah, there you go.
And then I went to Emerson and was like, "Hey, that guy from Scream."
And now he's on Barry, full
And now
circle.
he's on Barry.
He's
Yeah.
a hot ticket these days.
Yeah, good for him.
Was there so you mentioned the moment that you know Drew Barrymore and they kill her, I think within the
Like
first
10
10
minutes, I
minutes, right?
think, yeah.
Yeah, which is very similar to Marion Crane in Psycho. And
Mhm.
so they already were sort of echoing a massive horror franchise that had made or not franchise, but
Like,
a
one
massive
of the
horror
best
movie.
horror movies of all time,
Yeah.
yeah.
Are there other nods that you may know more than I do about the horror genre that is kind of making a nod to older horror movies
Like,
in
in
that one?
Scream
Yeah, in
specifically?
Scream?
Well, one of my favorites is Wes Craven, who directed the movie, also directed Nightmare on Elm Street.
Okay.
So in one of the scenes, he's, like, dressed as a janitor in the hallway mopping up the floor in a red and green striped sweater,
Mhm.
which is what Freddy Krueger wears in Nightmare on Elm Street.
Right.
So it's, like, a nod to Nightmare on Elm Street, Wes Craven. It's, like, so meta, which is the movie Scream itself is so meta that I just kind of love that. And then there's also the one character, Randy, who's obsessed with movies, and he's, like, tells you all the rules of horror movies, and he's always talking about, like, Jamie Lee Curtis, and, like, he just has such a broad knowledge of the horror genre.
Yeah.
I think it just plays nicely. And it's not even, like, some of the stuff they're doing isn't even subtle, it's just, like, very blatant, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah,
Mhm.
I think, like, watching it now, and I'm gonna, like, out myself. I'm like, I hate horror movies, but here are some things I know about horror movies that I've watched.
You went to film
I went
school?
to film school. But yeah, so I think, like, one of the things that really did strike me was the meta-ness of it. It's fun to watch, even though it's a horror movie,
Mhm.
versus, like, what you watched right before being Texas Chainsaw Massacre. It's like, okay, we're killing people with chainsaws. Like that
Yeah.
it's what it says on the box of the cover, you know?
Yeah.
But this one, like, really felt like it was made by someone who, I guess, not only influenced the horror genre himself prior to, but also really cared
Loves.
for it, loved for it,
Yeah.
yeah.
I love when you watch stuff and you can tell that the person who made it loves what they're making.
Mm.
It really makes such a difference.
Yeah. Did you at that point, because as you mentioned, we both went to the same film school and now you work in television, did you realize at that point that that was something you wanted to do before you watched Scream, or was that something that came later?
I think I always loved writing and making movies.
Mhm.
Like, stupid little movies on, like, my little point and click camera with my friends or, like, some, like, VHS videotape that we had. But I never really thought it was, like, a viable career, I
Mm.
guess, until, like, maybe a year or 2 later when I was actually applying to colleges.
Yeah.
But Scream definitely got me into thinking that this could be a career. I guess in a way that, like, you can have horror, you can have young adult themes, it can be in high school. I always knew I wanted to do young adult high school stuff.
Yeah.
And I've always been obsessed with, like, the CW and, like, ABC Family and stuff, Freeform now, but yeah, I guess Scream once I saw that, I think something just clicked in my brain that, like, all these things about entertainment that I love could be combined into one thing,
Yeah.
and that could be an amazing movie. Yeah, like, the
Yeah.
Scream was an amazing movie, so I don't know, just something about it, I was, like, blown away, I was like, "I've never seen anything like this before."
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think something that you specifically referenced in that was that it's a high school story.
Oh, yeah.
And,
Mhm.
like, I think it's I very vaguely mentioned it in your intro, but, like, people don't necessarily take teen content very seriously,
Mm, mhm.
whereas I think Scream really is one of those franchises that people look at as something that is serious filmmaking to some degree. Like, it's I've never heard anyone reference Scream and be like, "Oh, what a, like, stupid, like, teen movie."
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah,
yeah.
you don't think of it as a teen movie. I mean, I don't know most people that are like, "Yeah, that's a scary teen movie." You know what I
Yeah.
mean? They're like, "That's a scary movie."
Yeah, it's like a very solid piece of the genre that even when they're not releasing new movies, because the new one just came out,
Mhm.
like, last year, I think?
Earlier this year in
Earlier this year?
February, yeah.
Yeah, um, and, like, that one just came out to kind of revamp, and then there was the TV show, but even when they're not actively releasing stuff, like, I grew up going to Halloween Horror Nights out here, and,
Amazing.
the scariest thing that ever happened was the one year that they made out of nowhere, like, there was no new Scream movie, there was no reason to do this, but Scream was, like, the theme.
Oh my god.
I literally almost shit my pants. Like, what I was like, "This is not acceptable."
Okay, I'm so jealous that you went to that.
It was really cool, actually. It was, the like, one of the mazes goes through the Bates Motel set.
Oh my god. Wait, that was the Scream one?
Yeah, they had basically, like, Ghostface came out of the, like, hotel room doors, and I still, again, like, have this horrible or not even horrible, but just, like, it was so fun, but scary. This actress would come out of the door and scream for help, and then Ghostface would come out, bang, grab her around the waist, throw her back into the room, like, menacingly look out and slam the door, and I can, like, still, as I describe it to you, see and remember how scared
You're
I
gonna think of
was.
that when you go to bed tonight.
Yeah, I'm not gonna sleep well tonight. But, do you think, like, there's a lot that can get out of that teen movie genre and be taken? I would say Scream is one of the movies that people think of when they think of defining horror.
Yeah, and also, like, Halloween,
Yeah.
high school, Friday the 13th, high school,
Mhm.
Nightmare on Elm Street, high school. It's, like, a lot of classics that you think of in the horror genre are high school, and I think that's why I always have been so drawn to horror movies is because, like you're saying, they take high school seriously
Yeah.
and young adult stuff seriously. Like, people aren't like, "Oh, that's a bad movie because it's high school." They're like, "Oh, yeah, like, Halloween is an amazing movie."
Yeah. Did you feel like, because I know one of the things I personally love about the teen genre is I'm like, it's heightened, especially, like, genre movies in high school, is everything in high school does feel like the end of the world, so when you actually.
Everything.
Yeah, right? And so when you actually give the stakes of it literally is the end of the world, it feels very true.
To being in high school,
Yeah,
1,000%,
yeah.
yeah.
Do you feel like that's kind of what maybe allows it to work in horror so well?
Yeah, it's so funny, I never thought to put those 2 things together, but you're so right. That's definitely why it works is because when you're in high school, everything is life or death,
Yeah,
and in these horror movies, everything is life or death.
yeah.
Yeah.
Did it so you watched this in high school as well, so did it feel like you were in kind of that place at the time? I know you grew up on the East
Oh,
Coast and
definitely, yeah,
yeah.
I feel like I probably was like, "Oh my god, yeah," like, already planning my own escape route if Ghostface came into my high school, you know what I mean? Like oh, wait, circling back to the Final Destination
Oh,
thing,
yeah.
I wanted to say, I've never seen any of those movies because I watched the trailer with the log truck, and it scared the shit out of me, and I
Yeah,
said, "I'm never watching those movies, I already have too much anxiety,"
yeah,
like
it's like I think those movies are scary because it's like, as opposed to the high school side of it, it's like this could happen to you at any moment, like, the kills are very, they're very, like, real life.
Yes.
Like, I think someone dies in an elevator, like, there's just
Yes!
it's like, I don't need that.
You could be doing anything, anywhere, any day,
You could die brutally.
and that is your final destination.
Like, it's not gonna work for me. I'm gonna put that out there. Oh my goodness. So what were you sophomore year, were you driving? Did you have, like, any sort of freedom?
Oh
You
my
watched it
god.
with friends? What was your life like?
I watched it with friends, 2 of my friends came over and we had a sleepover, and then I remember my parents were out to dinner, and they came home and they knocked on the window and scared us. Maybe that made the experience that much more scary and incredible, is that they scared us too. I love being scared. The first time I saw Halloween, I watched it in college, and I told my roommates that I was gonna go watch it, like, in, like, a study room,
Mm.
and then I came back to my dorm room, and the lights were off and neither of them were there, and I was like, "That's weird, like, they should both be here." They both busted out of their little tiny closets and scared me, and I ran into the hallway and started crying.
Oh
I
my
think that I love when people scare me in real life in relation to a horror movie, it just makes the experience that much better. But, yeah, seeing Scream, I did not have my license because I was young for
So you were, like,
the
15.
grade, so I
Okay.
was 15, but, um yeah, I feel like this is such a weird thing, but growing up in Connecticut, I was just talking to somebody about this the other day. We had so many haunted houses, haunted hay rides, and not just like we had like our Six Flags and our lake compounds, which was kind of like our Connecticut Six Flags. They had their own Halloween Horror Nights-esque things, but then there was like the Trail of Terror, the haunted cabin, and it's like there were so many.
Mm.
Which is, like, weird. So I feel like I was always surrounded by spooky stuff, and there's something about the thrill of it. that
Yeah.
just excites me, and I don't know what it is, but it's always excited me, like, just being scared. I
Yeah.
hate being scared, but I also enjoy the sensation. I don't
Mm.
know what it is.
Are you an October 1st is Halloween kind of
Oh my god,
person?
I got a pumpkin spice latte in did it come out in August?
Okay.
Like, the first day it came out, I was like I texted my coworkers, I was like, "Who wants a pumpkin spice latte? I'm bringing them to work."
Oh,
Yeah, it's
yeah.
spooky season all year round for me,
I
but
love
then the
that.
world finally catches up in October.
That is, I think, a certain way to live. I really like that.
Thank you.
Do you okay, so you like the sensation of being scared,
Mhm.
but there's that level of also, "Oh my god, I'm scared."
Yeah.
Does it take a lot to scare you, or are you easily scared?
I'm really easily scared.
Yeah?
Yeah.
You're like a quick like a jump scare or
Maybe
like an
that's why things
easy
are fun, 'cause
Mm,
I'm just know I'm gonna be scared. Yeah.
yeah. So you sign up for it. You're
I
like
sign up for it.
yeah.
I'm also a big gasper at movies. It doesn't even it could be like a drama or comedy. I'm gasping, I'm laughing, like I'm a very much a reactor to things.
Okay, so horror is perfect for that.
It's perfect,
It's
yeah.
asking you to do that.
It's like, I know I'm gonna react, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. So, did you go straight from did you watch Scream and then go, "Have to watch the rest of these?" Or
Yes, because 2 and 3 were out when I saw the first one,
Mhm.
and then 4 came out when I was in college at Emerson,
Yeah.
which actually was, like, pretty incredible because I don't know if you did this when we went to college, but we had this big movie theater on the Boston Common right near our school,
Mhm.
and they always would do early advanced screenings for, like, big movies.
Yeah.
So, once I signed up for one, and they wouldn't tell you what the name of it was, usually you would know what you were getting yourself into, but you had to fill out the survey, and it was like, "Do you like horror movies? Do you like this movie?" Blah, blah, blah. It was, like, kind of just asking what you liked,
Mhm.
and I signed up for it, and I got a ticket, and I told one of my friends, I was like, "Oh, you should sign up for it too," and she didn't get a ticket, and I was like, "Why didn't you get a ticket?" And she
Yeah.
was like, "Oh, because I put I didn't like horror movies."
Oh.
And I was like, "Hmm." I was like, "My spidey senses are tingling. Scream 4 is coming out soon. I can't think of another big movie
Yeah.
that they would be showing." And so I remember waiting in line. I think I was in line for, like, 3 hours. I also was watching the It movie while I was waiting in line. I'm kind of a freak, like, sometimes saying this stuff out loud, I'm like, "Okay, this is gonna go on a podcast." And yeah, like, I remember I convinced the woman who wasn't supposed to tell you what the movie was, and I was like, "Please tell me if it's Scream 4 because I am gonna cry, and I need to cry before I go into the theater instead of crying in the theater." And so she, like, just slowly nodded her head and was like, "Yeah." And I was like, "I think I just left my body." So I saw an early screening of Scream 4,
Oh, I love
and it
that.
was the best thing one of the best things that's ever happened to me. But you couldn't tell. You signed, like, an NDA, and you couldn't tell anyone.
Yeah.
So I was, like, just had this incredible secret.
Did you go by yourself?
No, I actually went with a bunch of friends, so we could all talk about it, we could all talk about it. Oh.
Um, yeah, I actually do remember that theater. I saw, do you remember that movie Chris Rock made, Top 5?
I remember the name, but I definitely don't think I saw it.
I did not make much of a splash, but I was a big Chris Rock fan because my family is like we watched his stand up a lot and like all his movies and stuff. I feel like he was in a heyday when we were younger. And so I remember that movie was like early in the morning and it was one that they told you, but they also told you Chris Rock was going to be there. So I was like, I have to go. And I went by myself. No one wanted to go.
Oh my god! Did you have the best time, though?
I did, it was amazing. He was there for, like, 5 minutes, and it was like, my soul left my
But who
body.
cares? It's bragging rights,
It
too.
was
You're like,
amazing.
"Chris Rock was
I
there."
literally, like, walked out of the theater, called my dad, and was like, "I just met Chris Rock." And by, like, met, I was like, I was in the theater, and he was also in the
In the
theater.
theater, and we didn't make eye contact, but
He knew I was there.
that is so funny. I love that. I think either Wes Craven or Kevin Williamson was in our screening for Scream
Really?
4. I don't remember who it was, but they were, like, fully doing, like, a Q&A and asking people what they liked about the movie, what they didn't like, and they were gonna change it when the movie came out.
Did you see did they change anything from the cut you saw?
I remember they added in a scene or something, but I can't remember what scene it was.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a really cool experience, though, to get to see well, also, I like that it was a surprise.
It was a
Like,
surprise. It was
you were
life-changing.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's the anticipation of that. Were your friends that you went with as excited as you, or were they kinda there?
You know what? I think I had a few other friends that love horror movies that were there, so we were all having a good
Okay,
time.
that's great.
And I think it was the excitement of seeing a new movie too. Everyone was pretty excited. I also think everyone's seen Scream who I had gone with,
Yeah.
so they were happy about it.
Going through. Yeah, I think there's something really cool about getting those little magic moments where it's like someone knew you were in line. Like maybe
Mhm.
it wasn't Scream, but now it is. It's
Mhm.
Scream
Yeah,
4.
it's like they had another film reel and they're like, "Throw it out.
Yeah, burn it.
Burn it. Bring in Scream 4.
Right, Chrissy's in line.
There's one crazy person in the audience in the line who needs to see this movie."
Oh my god. So you saw 1, 2, 3 when you were in high school,
Yes.
and then 4 comes out while we're in college.
Yes.
5 came out this year.
This year.
So I think when they decided they were bringing 4, they were gonna do 4, there was quite a bit of a gap, wasn't
Oh
there?
my god, it had to have been like 10 years.
Yeah.
It was a pretty big gap. There were a few returning characters like Neve Campbell, Courtney Cox, David Arquette. I think that was it though. So like the main 3, the
Yeah.
iconic 3 who have survived everything
Mhm.
until the
Mhm.
most recent movie. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's pretty sad. Spoiler alert. Um, but and then it was a whole new cast, which is why I think it was so iconic is because it was Scream for us.
Mm.
Like, did you watch Scream 4?
I actually have not seen Scream 4.
Okay, you need to watch the opening sequence of Scream 4. It
Okay.
is the best opening sequence I've ever seen in my life, and I will go on record saying that. There's so many cameos in it,
Yeah.
but cameos for us.
Okay.
It opens with Shanae Grimes and Lucy Hale.
Okay.
Done, they both die. Then it's Anna Paquin and Kristen Bell.
Mhm.
Done.
Done.
They're dead. And then it's Amy Teagarden and Britt Robertson.
Okay.
And it's like, okay, you have Lucy Hale and Shanae Grimes, PLL, 90210, Kristen Bell. I mean, she's an icon
Everything,
from everything,
yeah.
Veronica Mars.
Right.
And then Anna Paquin, True Blood. And then you have Britt Robertson. I mean, The Secret Circle, which nobody watched except me, but I was obsessed with it. A Kevin Williamson show, by the way. So that's
Okay.
probably why she was there. And then Amy Teagarden, Friday Night Lights. They just hit you with all of these teen girlies. It was like just so brilliant.
And it's like in the same way that they did with Drew Barrymore, like in the
Yes,
original.
but then they got like 8 of them. And it's like to everyone else, they're like, who the heck is Britt Robertson? And I'm
Yeah.
like, you don't know who Britt Robertson is?
She's in
Yeah.
a wonderful rom-com with Dylan O'Brien.
Oh my God. Actually, it's not that wonderful. I kind of rewatched it recently. It's not that good. But I don't like to say bad things about stuff because I know how hard people work.
Yeah, it's hard to. Yeah, I mean, I enjoyed it. I don't think I've watched it in a while, but
Yeah.
but it's one of those just like classic casual. That's what I really think of her when I think of.
When you think of,
Yeah, I
yeah.
think that was the first thing I saw her in. Yeah, I think what's cool about what you're describing though is it feels like they kept the heart of their own franchise. Like
Mhm.
I think a lot of times when you bring things back, there's this debate of like, do we do exactly what we did before? Do we do something new? Do we understand it? Like, as we say, I hate to say something bad about things in general, but that was something I struggled with when they brought Ocean's 11 back
Mhm.
because that original franchise I love. I love, love, love those movies. And I don't think that the new movies are not good movies. I think they don't necessarily understand the intent from the originals. They don't have that same
Mhm.
spirit. And it sounds like watching Scream 4, you were like, not only do you get it, but you get how to update it for the people that are watching now.
Yeah, it's like you made it for the new generation of people who grew up watching Scream. This
Mhm.
is for them. And one of my favorite things about it is Emma Roberts. I'm just gonna spoil. Like I'm gonna
Just
go ahead and
spoil the
spoil it. We're
movie.
talking about it.
Yeah.
Emma Roberts is the main character,
Mhm.
and her character's name is Jill Roberts, which is like I kind of love that they kept her last name because her aunt in real life is Julia Roberts.
Yeah.
So in the movie, Neve Campbell, Sydney is her aunt,
Mhm.
and the whole movie is kind of about how her aunt is overshadowing her. So she ends up being one of the killers in the end because
Mm.
she's so sick of growing up in the shadow of her aunt that she wants to make a name for herself. And I was like, are you kidding me? Like how crazy to take that from her real life. I mean, she doesn't have a relationship in which she wants to kill Julia Roberts in real life.
Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed, but it was like kind of just so meta ingenious that like they took something from her life and then made it. I mean, I bet she was cast after, but it's like genius
Sure.
casting, you know?
Yeah. So, okay, we should talk about the meta-ness because that's something that you've referenced a couple times.
Oh my God, I'm obsessed with it.
Yeah. So, like, I guess for me, I would love to know. I think a lot of people have different definitions of what like meta is and how it's accomplished and whether or not it's accomplished well. So I would love to hear kind of what you think that meta vibe is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess I more am saying it in the way of being self-referential, being
Yeah.
completely aware of what you're doing
Yeah.
in a way that other people might not think you're aware of what you're doing, if that
Mm.
makes sense at all.
No, it does. Yeah, I think there's something cool about it where it's like it it is intentional, but because maybe the horror movie genre isn't always taken seriously, no one how many people are actually sitting down and going, "Oh, what a brilliant thing," because Emma like, how many people know that Emma Roberts is Julia Roberts' niece and think
Yeah, people
through
aren't
yeah.
mentally ill like me. Like
Um, but I think, like, for the people that do want to dig into that, it's really
Mm,
cool that it's thought out that much.
yeah. Yeah, and I love things where you're watching it and you're kind of like, "Is that intentional?" It's always intentional if you even have a
Yeah.
sliver of a thought. It is intentional. But it but I do like things that are like, "Is that?" That's what one of my favorite things about now being a TV writer is it is intentional.
Yeah.
But growing up, I was like, "Oh, what are they trying to do here?" You know?
Yeah,
They're doing it.
they're doing
Yeah,
it
they're doing
intentionally.
it, yeah.
Did it feel like a little bit of a puzzle, though, when you were growing up trying to figure out, like, those little pieces? Did
Oh,
you yeah,
1,000%, yeah.
yeah.
What was it like for you?
For me, well, I was a Tumblr girly, so I
Oh
was
god, I love.
absolutely yeah. I was 100% the type of person that was like like, we were talking about Teen Wolf before we got on the podcast, and I remember I can say this now, it's been years. Like, I remember being one of those people that was like, actually, in the pilot, Styles says that Derek was only a couple of years ahead of them, and they may have cast this man that's, like, 35 years old and looks like a underwear model, but actually, he's literally, like, maybe 2 or 3 years older than them, like, he's right out of high school. That was that type of person where I was like, "This makes
Mhm.
sense that he's acting this way and the actor's too old," but I feel like we've now changed the argument of how old like, that's how deep I would go.
Okay, I'm obsessed with that.
It was so bad. But I do think there's something that's one of the parts of media that's so fun, is being able to sit there and be like, "Here's the map of all the things." And that one in particular, I remember because people not me, I was too afraid to ever tweet at a creator, but I was one of those people that, like, you would never know that any of my none of my usernames had anything identifiable or, like, you could find it, and I absolutely deleted the entire thing off the internet before I went to college, but there were people who would tweet at, like, Jeff Davis and be like, in episode 1, you say this, but in episode 17, you say this, and they don't match up," and he was like, "Please leave me alone." Like,
Oh, yeah. We get that a
I
lot on Riverdale too, and it's just like, I kind of am I'm obsessed with how obsessed people are,
Yeah,
'cause it's like, yeah, that was me.
yeah,
You know what I mean? Like, that was me as a teen,
yeah.
like
I feel like you picked one of those things where it was intentional, like, you picked for Scream, anything that you went through and you pulled apart, like, probably was a genuinely intentional choice.
yeah, mhm.
When people ask you about whether or not it's intentional, I think you pick something where most of the time it is, but a lot of times people are like, "Yeah, if that's what you got, that's great. It was I forgot. I'm so tired. Please stop asking me questions."
You're like, "I was just putting words down on the page." Yeah. Um, I feel like this may be completely wrong, but with maybe a movie, it's easier to be intentional
Mm,
because with a TV show, you could have hundreds of episodes,
yeah,
and you don't necessarily remember every word that you wrote in episode 2 if
yeah,
you're writing episode 105, you
yeah,
know? But with movies, it's, like, so contained within itself that
mhm,
I feel like it might be easier to be intentional?
that's fair.
I don't know, though.
Yeah, I feel like well, like, I do think there's a lot of TV shows that are intentional, and there's a lot of TV shows
That
that
aren't.
it's like, "Oops, but yeah, sure, that's legitimate, whatever you said." Like, if I
Yeah.
said that in episode 17, then sure,
Sure, I said it,
I
yeah.
believe you. Did some of that, like, intentionality or that being able to kind of unspool the thread get you to watch other horror movies after Scream?
No, I think it was, like horror to me feels tongue in cheek in a way
Mm.
because it's, like, so ridiculous. Does this make me sound like a psychopath? I don't know. But it is, like, just so ridiculous, like, Chucky, the doll that comes to life. It's
Yeah.
like, that's so crazy. It's almost like I'm not a big sci-fi person, this is what sci-fi feels like to me,
Mm.
where it's like, it just feels like an alternate reality,
Yeah.
you know? I know people can die in real life,
Sure.
and I know there are serial killers, but this is so, like, fantastical.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's like a level of I hate to use this word 'cause it sounds very dark and twisted to say it this way, but, like, it is a level of a fantasy type of thing.
Yeah, it is, though. It is a very dark fantasy.
Yeah.
I don't dream of anyone dying.
You know?
I need to go on the record and say that.
Do you have, like, because there's in every horror movie, there's, like, the final girl.
Oh,
Do you
yeah.
think, like, part of that connects to the fantasy of, like, if this happened, like, I could survive?
My friends always say I could survive, but I don't know if I could survive. Do you know what I mean? I think
Yeah.
I'd just be like, "I give up."
Take me.
Just take me, like, this is too exhausting, and then you're gonna have to live with the trauma for the rest of your life, you know?
Very true. I would say that's probably one they don't touch on, which then I
Yes.
do feel I do feel like that's part of the fantasy, right? Is, like, if at the end you just have, like, the girl who made it all the way through covered in
Yeah.
blood, like, strong.
And you know what? That's what I loved about it too as a kid, because I was like, "Oh, it's a girl that's surviving." You
Mm.
know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah.
"Look at how badass she is. She made it. She outsmarted this crazy person."
Yeah.
They're usually men, you
Mhm.
know? And it's
Yeah.
like, that was kind of badass.
Oh, that's interesting. I guess I've never which is so silly. It is literally called, like,
The
The
final
Final
girl.
Girl, but
Yeah.
I've never thought about the fact that most horror movies do end with a girl managing to either outsmart or outfight a man that should, by all intents and purposes, win.
Yeah. And I feel like when we were younger, a lot of movies for us were like rom-coms, which by the way, I love a good rom-com,
Yeah.
but but also like with horror, the girl was succeeding in the end, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, there's a do you feel like maybe I don't know how many battles you were fighting in high school.
Yeah, right. A
A
lot,
lot,
right?
yeah. A
Yeah.
lot of chainsaws coming at you.
So many.
But did you have anything going on that felt like you did want to be sort of victorious and this was a level of getting to watch someone do that?
Yeah, I mean, probably every teenager isn't high school a battle in itself, you know what I
It's
mean?
true, yeah.
So I feel like that probably was me wanting to leave my small town, see what else is out there, battling my demons. I don't know. Probably not, I'm just making it up now, but
No,
yeah.
no, I think well, like, the small town thing also I think is interesting in terms of horror movies because it's pretty rare I don't think Scream,
Small
small
town,
town,
everything's
yeah,
pretty much a small town, yeah.
yeah. Is there a level of, like, that small town escape I don't know that, like, after you escape a horror film, like, that girl stays in the small
That's
town,
small town,
right?
yeah. I think I like that things are set in small towns.
Yeah?
I enjoy a show, I enjoy a movie that's set in a small town.
Do they get it right often, or do
Oh, yeah,
you
you're not
yeah?
from a small
I'm not
town.
from a small town, yeah. I do
Hmm,
have, like, a very big interest in
small
small
towns.
towns from but just because my literally, like, I grew up watching, like, Gilmore Girls, and that's my
Mhm.
biggest reference for a small town, which I assume is probably not super accurate?
You know what? It kind of is.
Yeah?
People always are like, "Is Gilmore Girls accurate?" And it, like, kind of is. It's like, there probably aren't that many festivals, you know what I mean? There's, like, probably not a festival every weekend,
Yeah.
but for a town that small,
Yeah.
Stars Hollow felt pretty small, like, you would know everybody.
Yeah.
You probably have your regulars at Luke's, like, my town was small. Yeah, I feel like everyone pretty much knew everyone. You'd go to the movies, you'd see the same people.
Mhm.
You'd go to the diner, you'd see people. Yeah.
Yeah. Was it, like, a one high school, like, everybody was in the
One high
same
school,
yeah.
yeah. I think we had, like, 800 kids in our high school.
Okay.
Yeah, it was pretty small.
800 overall, like, from ninth to senior year
Mhm.
kinda thing? Cool. I wonder how much of that connects to I feel like when I watch high school things, I'm like or as a high schooler, I was like, "Oh, yeah, like, I connect with this because it's like watching yourself on screen."
Mhm.
But I there are very rarely high school shows set in,
Cities.
yeah, in cities, especially not ones that I related to, growing up. Like, Gossip Girl was set in a city,
Oh,
was
yeah, but
whew.
you weren't relating to them?
Oh, no, actually, I too, every day was doing exactly what they were doing. Getting engaged to princes,
Oh,
going
yeah.
yeah. But I think, especially in horror flicks, it's like it is that small town space where it almost does feel like it could happen, like
Yeah, it's, like, scary. Like,
yeah.
small towns are, like, magical, but also scary, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, it's the flip side of it
Mhm.
where, yeah, I always I think I do sometimes always wonder, I'm like, "Ugh, if it's a small town, how are we not solving this problem? Can't we just shouldn't we know who this is?" But I wonder how much of that where you really were able to kind of see yourself in it connected to you wanting to watch more.
That's so funny. I don't know if I ever saw myself in it. It's so
No?
funny that you asked this. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think liked that it was the women
Yeah.
surviving, but I don't think I ever saw myself as a final girl.
I do think there's something aspirational about a final girl
Mhm.
because I think there's the one thing I do really like about horror films, the ones that I can watch without being, racked with nightmares for the rest of my weeks, are that they do always have something to say. Like
Yeah.
they're not rarely are they just like vapid blood-soaked slasher fix. Like there is a reason that each
There's
thing,
so
yeah.
many of those, but I feel like more recently, a lot of horror movies have a lot to say.
Yeah,
Yeah. Like, everything Jordan Peele does, incredible, a lot
for
to
sure.
say. I just saw Barbarian, I feel
Mhm.
like that had a lot to say. I just watched X. Like, there's just so many different movies now, and it's like they're hitting it more they're hitting the themes and the notes more
Yeah.
than maybe, like, I don't know, House of Wax or something, I don't know,
Sure,
yeah.
yeah. Well, is that the
The
Paris
Paris
Hilton
Hilton
one?
one,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
iconic.
Well, they had something to say, and it was Paris Hilton's in this movie.
Yeah, and you know what? That's actually pretty important. I love her.
I do too.
Okay,
Yeah, I'm a big
great.
fan, actually, especially after that documentary
Oh
she
my
just did.
god, I know.
So good.
I know.
Um, Talk about a horror film, but
Yeah.
um, well, so something I am curious about with kind of that space of like horror movies having something to say. I talk a lot with people about how genre TV and genre film really connect with us. And I wonder whether you feel the same way in like it's not just horror, it's superhero movies,
Mhm.
it's the stuff that's still really doing well at the box office, which is that it feels like you can watch something and just watch the surface level and be happy with it and walk out of the movie and be cool. But you can also tear apart every little piece of it and
Mhm.
find this big thesis statement that you were able to watch sort of like someone's actual take on some sort of societal thing without having to listen to someone tell you what their take is.
Yeah. Mhm.
Do you feel like you gravitate towards that or do you feel like horror and Scream in particular does that?
Scream does that in a different way than other
Mm,
horror movies, I would say. But yeah, I do enjoy the message behind the movie.
yeah.
I love a movie where you're like, you can leave that and be like, I actually don't wanna think about that.
Mhm.
But I also love that you could be like, let me dissect every little thing about what I just saw on screen.
Yeah.
And then let me go on TikTok and go down a rabbit hole of what other people think happened on
Oh,
screen.
the
Or I'll
best.
go on Reddit or I'll Google it and be like, what did the shoe standing up mean in Nope? You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
And there's a million explanations, and none of them are right because Jordan Peele didn't tell anyone, you
Yeah.
know? For Scream, I think I just liked how classic it was. It just
Mm.
felt like such a classic horror movie spinning around over itself. I don't know if that makes sense, but it just felt like it was doing everything a classic horror movie does, but it was like subverting it or like being tongue in cheek about it or like just really being referential and like admiring the genre as a whole. Yeah, it's like a love letter to horror movies.
I think one of the things that I wanted to ask you about is the MTV TV show that they did.
Oh yeah. Mhm.
Because they do reference like, one of the super meta things to me about it is, like, they have the Drew Barrymore kill with Bella Thorne,
Iconic.
which, like, at that point was
Oh my god, it was iconic. They couldn't have
huge.
cast anyone better.
No, it was exactly the right
It
person
was
for it.
perfect.
And then so you've got Scream with Bella Thorne referencing the original Scream with Drew Barrymore, which was referencing Psycho with Marion Crane, which the Psycho TV show, Bates Motel, referenced back to and used Rihanna for all of those things.
Oh my god. You know what? I never was that, like, season 3 or 4 that Rihanna was
Yeah.
in Bates Motel?
Yeah.
I only watched up to season 2, and somebody the other day was like, "Yeah, Rihanna in Bates Motel," and I was like, "I need to finish this show."
Oh my
Like,
god, yeah. It was yeah, she's in I wanna say it's season 4.
I need to
I
watch
could be
this.
wrong. It's, like, the last season because basically Bates Motel up until that point, which is why I feel like this is so genius. Bates Motel up until that point was traveling towards the beginning of Psycho.
Mhm.
But they had always said this isn't Psycho. It is, and it's not a prequel to Psycho, but it is about Norman Bates. And so when you get to the point that his mom has already died and like it's kind of catching up to the what the movie and like the canon that we know, you have Rihanna and she's Marion Crane, like that's the character's name, and she checks into the hotel and he doesn't kill her. And so it's this big, I remember being like, "Oh, fucking genius." Like, what a genius way to do it because this entire TV show has had the tension of
Of Marion
knowing,
Crane, yeah.
yeah, you have the tension of knowing that this character turns into this character, and you know what happens in Psycho. Everyone knows what happens in Psycho. But then the brilliance of it to not have that be the kill in the episode, where you're like, "Oh my god, like, anything can happen now."
I love that.
Which I wonder, I do wonder now looking back on all of that and, like, going down that chain of meta-ness of everything referencing it, how much they were able to say, "Okay, so Scream watched Psycho and had this brilliant reference to that casting of having Drew Barrymore be the kill off Drew Barrymore," but then to have you feel like, I don't know what's gonna happen because of the unsettlingness and knowing that that was in kind of the frame of mind for people that would have watched it.
Mhm.
But then to be able to do the same thing of saying you know what's gonna happen and to understand that the genius of the twist was that people thought that actress wouldn't be killed off, and that
Mhm.
was why it was surprising, then to know Rihanna's been cast as Marion Crane, she's gonna
She's gonna
die,
die,
to
yeah.
then be able to flip it and say, "No, you don't. You don't know what's happening."
Rihanna, you're alive.
Rihanna
And you're
lives.
performing at the Super Bowl halftime show.
But I
Yeah,
yeah.
I love that, and I think to that point, they put Drew Barrymore on the poster for Scream.
Mhm.
So I think that's why it was so shocking too for people. I wish that I had seen that movie right when it came out,
Yeah.
and, like, had fully been aware of that and,
Yeah.
like, shocked.
To be Yeah, I can't imagine what the theater was like when Drew Barrymore gets killed
I
at
bet you
that
people
point.
screamed, like the movie title.
They were like, "Mission accomplished, you can all go
You
home."
can all go
It's a
home.
short film now, so
Everyone's like, "Wait, the movie's over?"
yeah.
I love her.
But I do think that meta-ness is something that works really well in horror because
Mhm.
it sounds like it's really about sort of subverting what the audience is expecting
Mhm.
to some degree.
Yeah.
Did you know Drew Barrymore died watching the first one? Did you have any frame of reference
I
watching
don't
the first
think I
movie?
knew.
No?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I was like, "Why is Drew Barrymore dead?"
You're like, "This is ridiculous. I want
Yeah.
my $4.99 back for this movie."
Blockbuster, come on.
Unacceptable.
Yeah.
You would have had to have probably rented those movies over and over again.
I definitely rented it, and then I think I bought it on DVD.
Okay. You were,
Yeah.
like, sold.
Yeah. I think I was like went to, like, a used DVD store and was like, "I need to own this." Yeah. Oh, it was also the time remember when we were, like, downloading movies illegally online?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay,
No. What are
yeah.
you talking about?
That never happened.
It's not the truth. Yeah,
I think that's what I did,
I
yeah.
don't know, there was this website that I definitely never went on called Pirate Bay.
Oh my god, I haven't heard that name in so long. Oh my god, as I was driving over here, I was like, I wanted to talk about watching, like, TV in high school because
Yeah.
this was around the same time I watched Scream, and, like, I have such a vivid memory of watching Gossip Girl on that website that was called, like, Mega
Oh,
Upload or
yeah, Mega
something.
Upload or Project Free TV.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I remember the sound was always off, so I'd have to pull up 2 videos, one with the sound and one with the video, and time them out perfectly so that the sound was playing perfectly, uh, as the characters were talking. The things we
Yeah.
did to watch TV not live.
I actually think about that so much now where I'm like, kids these days do not know how easy they have it.
No.
Whereas I'm sure someone would say the exact same thing about us, where they're
Yeah.
like, "Ma'am, like there was no such thing as a pirate or an internet
Or TV.
or TV. What?" But yeah, but like I do remember the extent to which I would go to like
Yeah.
consume media. Because who had time? Like you couldn't. There wasn't. And it sounds like we're like talking about the Stone Age. It was not that long ago, but like there wasn't like Netflix. There was eventually, but at the
But you had to, like,
time,
get mail-in
yeah, mail
DVDs.
DVDs.
Yeah.
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 Did you? But I sometimes I look back on it, and maybe this is just my like latent high school superiority complex where I'm like, "Yeah, but I really loved TV enough to do that." Like, you're like like,
I
you
get that.
yeah?
Yeah, but we were, like, renting the DVD boxes from
Mhm.
Blockbuster, and we were, like, watching whole seasons. We were binging.
Yeah.
We were binging before it was a thing because we had to rent the DVD, and we only had however many days to watch it.
Yeah. And it was like it was a core yeah. Do you remember so you've got Gossip Girl that you were
Core
lining
yeah, Core
everything up.
Memory, Degrassi,
Oh, Degrassi.
90210, and then obviously, like, Disney Channel shows, Nickelodeon shows, loved.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. The show I will say that got me into wanting to write for TV was
Yeah.
Dexter.
Oh,
Another
really?
amazing horror/serial killer show because I loved that they were able to take a serial killer and make you care about him, which is, like, so fucked up, but I was like, "Why am I rooting for this man?" And I thought it was so brilliant that they could make me care about a serial killer, and I was like, "Damn, people are really good at writing."
I still think the first 5 seasons of Dexter are some of the best
Oh my god,
television ever made.
amazing. You
Yeah.
watched it?
Oh, of
It wasn't
course.
that I guess it wasn't that scary, but
Oh, yeah, I guess so for me, I would say Dexter doesn't even register as a horror, but I guess it is. It's about a serial killer and there's a lot of murder and,
there's,
like
like, a death every episode.
like,
It's, like,
sometimes more
pretty
than
fucked up.
one,
Yeah.
yeah. But I would say and maybe this is um my own bias against things, which I tend to think I don't have a lot of. Like, I tend to be, like, up for anything and think that everything has some sort of validity when it comes to making media, but there's a certain specific type of horror film that I, like, instantly am just like, I just can't. Like, I saw, A Quiet Place, I thought it was brilliant,
Mm.
and I remember being, like, in that theater and experiencing the tension of it and, like, physically being angry at someone for, like, getting into their popcorn bucket. I was like, "It's a silent movie intentionally." Um, yeah, Dexter, which I guess is technically, like, it hits all of the horror things, something about that never has registered as horror to me.
Yeah. That makes
Um,
sense, though.
yeah, I don't know, but I guess maybe it's because it feels I guess I watched Dexter when it was on. I was a little too young
No, I
to
did
do
too.
that,
Like, why was I
yeah.
watching that?
My dad was watching it,
Oh, yeah, my
and,
mom was watching it.
yeah.
Meanwhile, I wasn't that young. I was, like, probably, like, 16, you know?
Yeah, well, I think when season 1 came out, that had to be, like, 2006-ish? I don't know, that it was on for long enough that I was at a certain point old enough to be watching it, but at
Mhm.
the I
You
think at
shouldn't
the
have.
beginning I shouldn't have. Um, but yeah, Dexter, I think you're right, it is horror, like, it's a serial killer show, but I guess maybe because the perspective is the serial killer.
Yeah, you're not scared 'cause and he's, like has his whole VO monologue the whole time. You know what
Yeah.
he's doing. Yeah.
It's that one's interesting too because the books that they're adapted from, he has superpowers at a certain point.
What?
Yeah, it's they obviously didn't go with that in the TV show, but at a certain
Oh
point he
my
does.
god.
Yeah.
I think I read, like, the first 2 books and then never finished.
Yeah, I remember, learning that and being like, "That would've
Okay.
been a different show."
Kind of obsessed with that. Maybe I need to revisit those
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
books,
I'm gonna have
yeah.
to fact check that, and if I'm wrong, cut it out. I'm almost
Just cut the whole
positive.
segment,
Yeah, it
yeah.
didn't happen. Well, so Dexter being something that, like, made you go, "Ooh, people can write," that's interesting because I feel like it's so the opposite of teen TV and, like, something else
Mhm.
that you really respect. Um, and it is one of those shows that I think also, mm, it has all of the horror elements, but it doesn't have that element of, like, a final girl. There is not really 'cause, anybody I can think of also dies.
Yeah, Deb, I know, so sad.
But what about Dexter, like, made you go, "Oh, this
Oh.
is" like, was there a moment where you hooked in?
I maybe from episode 1. I remember
Yeah?
watching it with my mom, and I was like I'd never seen The Sopranos, like, I'd never
Mhm,
seen something with, like, a true anti-hero,
mhm.
so I think this was maybe one of the first shows I saw with an anti-hero, and I was like, "Wow, they really are getting me to like this guy
Yeah,
and care about him, and I don't want him to get caught." Meanwhile, he's murdering all these people, and I'm like, "He can't get caught. Oh my" yeah,
yeah,
because then what's the show gonna be, you know?
yeah.
And it's crazy that they make you that other serial killers are the villains,
Mhm.
and he's not it's like it's so twisted, and I just thought it was
It's
genius.
brilliant. Yeah, it is. I always think, and it's the season that everybody references too, so I'm not
Trinity
some, like,
Killer.
yeah, exactly.
Mhm.
I was gonna say, I'm not like some like, this
You
isn't
just
gonna
said
be a
no, you have
hot
great
take.
taste. You have
Yeah.
great taste.
But yeah, John Lithgow in
So good.
versus Michael C. Hall, they just, I think, some of the best acting I've seen in a really long time. They're so fucking good against
I
each
need to
other.
rewatch that season.
It's a good
Yeah.
season. That's another one that has a kill where you go, "There's no way this kill could ever happen."
It was so sad.
Yeah,
It was
it was
like, I
devastating.
couldn't believe.
Absolutely
I could
devastating.
not believe.
But it still it has that same hook for you,
Yeah.
where I think, like, in TV, it's even more devastating because it's, at that point, 4 seasons in, I
Yeah,
think?
and you grow to, like, love and care about that character.
Yeah. And then you're like,
You're like, "Wait, you're just dead all of a sudden?
yeah.
Okay."
I think actually watching that, I remember, because that's a season finale, and I remember being like, "I don't think it's true." Like,
I thought the same thing. I was
yeah,
like, "She's alive."
yeah, and she's
And
not.
she's not. She's pretty dead.
She was not only dead, but, like, cast on Desperate Housewives right after. And I still was like, I think she'll be back." They were like, "That is literally not how television
She can
works."
walk from Wisteria Lane to Miami,
She'll be
like,
fine.
yeah.
They're shot in the same town, like, Dexter was shot in LA.
Oh, I didn't know that.
It is actually one of the first shows I can remember, breaking, and I still think it's brilliant, obviously, but, like, breaking my suspension of disbelief, because he, at one point in the first season, drives down a street that I drove down every day,
Oh,
and I
and
was like, "That's not Miami, man."
yeah, you're like, "I live near this street.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
was like,
this is
"This is the
LA."
route I take to school."
Oh, that's heartbreaking.
Yeah, I mean, it was, I mean, still, but I guess a testament to the show itself, that I was like, "That's fine. I'm still in it." Like,
Mhm.
I was like, "That's Los Angeles, but he's killing people in Miami, and that's fine." And not only that, I hope he continues.
He's doing a great job.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's, look at him. He's doing amazing.
Oh,
Well, I would love to talk about, actually, because I think Riverdale deserves its due on this podcast, which is that
oh my god.
which is that it is a show that's very intentional, and that I think, like we said, we may have hinted at earlier, gets talked about a lot for perhaps people perceiving it as not very intentional. And so I'm curious, for you working on a show that does reference itself, is referencing source material, and, like, does have this big fandom attached to it, how it's, like, going from being a fan of something that does that so well, and then getting to be a part of
A show
doing
that
a
does
show that does
that.
that so well, yeah.
I think that's why I love the show so much, and even before, I didn't work on seasons 1 or 2, but I loved Riverdale. Like, I was like, "I need to work on that show,"
Mm.
and I, like, could not believe it when I got like, when I interviewed for it and then got the job. It was incredible. But yeah, it feels so much like Scream to me in the way that it's referencing itself. It referencing every TV show, every movie that you can think of.
Yeah.
It is just, like, beautiful to me. That's so cheesy to say, but it is, it's really fun. And my boss said that he doesn't differentiate between highbrow and lowbrow, which I don't either.
Mm.
And I think that's, like, kind of a fun way to navigate through life because you could either be like, "Oh, I only watch film," or you only take what you see at the surface level. But I think that combining both of those elements are really fun. And, like, yeah, I love stuff that people think is trash, you know?
Yeah.
But there's, like, a genius to it, and I love, like, reading intelligent literature. You know what I mean? It's like
Sure, yeah,
stupid
yeah,
shit. It's
yeah.
like, I just like it all, and I like things that combine it all. So,
Yeah. I
yeah.
love the idea of not differentiating between highbrow and lowbrow.
Yeah.
I don't think I've heard anyone put it in those words, but I do think it's the best way to not only consume but make media.
Yeah, I agree, and it's funny because a lot of the music that I listen to is like that too.
Oh, okay.
And I was watching an interview with one of my favorite producers, and he said the exact same thing. He's
Really?
like, "We don't differentiate between a high and low brow," and I was like, "No wonder I like this so much." I was like, "Everything I like just takes the best of what it is." And yeah, I like things that aren't ashamed to be what they are, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, I think something that I think people maybe don't realize is that a really good show is one that people are talking about, and there's no shortage of people talking about Riverdale.
Oh my god, it's like people are always talking about it for some reason. It's always usually like, "Why is this show canceled, but Riverdale still hasn't got a
Yeah.
season?" It's, like, always trending. I always click on, like, "What show got canceled?" and people are yelling about Riverdale today.
I think, like, the thing that I think people forget sometimes, though, is, like, entertainment at its core is meant to be entertaining,
Mhm.
and that doesn't always mean that, like, you're watching Dexter. Like,
Yeah.
it does mean sometimes that you're, like, enjoying the shit out of yourself.
Yeah,
Like
like, you are going on a crazy ride where
Yeah.
Archie gets mauled by a bear and then sees, like, ghosts and, like, you know.
Oh, no, there's gold. I can't.
No, you can't watch it, you don't like
I
ghosts,
won't
you
be
don't like
there,
ghosts,
yeah.
yeah.
Oh, I'm so sorry, I was trying to be supportive. No. What is it like, though, to, like I feel like one of the things you've talked about is, like, not realizing you wanted to make media, then kind of realizing, like, "Oh, this is something that I could do," and then that slotting into place properly when you were applying to school, and
Mhm.
then I'm very familiar with your college experience because it was the same
It
as
was the same
mine,
one, yeah.
but, obviously not everyone listening maybe is, but Emerson is extremely specific. It's not like going and getting a film degree at, like, a liberal arts college. It is very much, like, hands-on, this is what you're doing, and good luck trying to learn how to do something else if this doesn't work
Work
out.
out.
Your
Yeah, you
degree is
declare
not
your major
Yeah.
from day 1.
Yeah.
Like, you apply for a certain major and you get in for that major,
Yeah.
which is funny because I didn't apply for screenwriting. I always wanted to be a writer, and I was afraid to admit it, and then I went to college, and I just did, like, just TV production.
Yeah.
I was like, "Maybe I'll be a producer," and then I took a writing class because you were required to, and I had so much fun in it that I took a million other writing classes, and I, like, would beg the registrar to let me into these
Mm.
classes 'cause I was like, "I just kinda wanna learn how to do it all."
Yeah.
And so, I didn't graduate with a screenwriting degree, but I fell in love with writing kind of all over again. Writing has always come naturally to me,
Mhm.
um, but yeah, it wasn't that I until, like, halfway through college where I was like, "Ooh, I really do wanna do this as a career."
Yeah.
So, yeah, I just felt lucky to be at Emerson and, like, have access to all of those classes and learn how to, like, build a story and, like, structure a television episode and a movie and yeah.
Yeah. I feel like there's a certain and this may be my own projecting as well because I took a gap year with the intention of being an engineer prior to, and then being like
I didn't know that.
yeah, it's always a fun fact, and a fun fact that I used to get made fun of at Emerson, actually, I will say,
Ugh,
because people were
okay.
like, "You can do math, why are you here?"
Yeah.
Like,
Honestly true,
yeah,
yeah.
they're like, "You can
You're
have a
smart, no.
paying job." No. A job that pays you. Yeah, no, I think I'm always really interested in people who are able to say, like, "I know what I wanna do," and actually pursue it. Like, did you ever have a moment where you kind of were like, "Maybe this isn't" like, it sounds like you pushed off being a writer even through your
Well, I pushed off being
degree.
a writer. This is you know what? This is something I'm learning about myself. I pushed off being a writer, and then I was like, "No, you just gotta own it." And then when I moved out here, I pushed off saying that I wanted to write young adult stuff because
Mm,
I didn't want people to make fun of me, you know?
yeah.
I was way too concerned with what other people were thinking. And then it wasn't until I started telling people, I was like, "I really wanna write teen television." People were like, "Why haven't you been saying that the whole time?" Like, once people know what you wanna do, they're gonna be like, "Oh, there's a spot open on this show.
Mm,
Here we have the perfect person who's gonna be excited about it," you
yeah,
know? So, that's my advice that I give to anyone who, like, is like, "Can we get coffee?" I'm like, "Always let everyone know exactly what you wanna do.
yeah,
You'll just get there faster."
yeah. I love the idea that you were a it it sounds a little embarrassed to tell people that you wanted to do teen TV,
Yeah.
because I think people are embarrassed to watch it sometimes.
People are embarrassed to watch it, but it's good.
It's
That's some good shit.
Yeah. I always maintain that I think it's one of the best genres of content in general. And I think part of the thing about it is, like, a lot of people don't recognize how many people that aren't teenagers watch teen TV.
Oh my god. So many. I cannot tell you how many, like, adult male family members I have that watch, like, All American.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? It's,
Yeah.
like, pretty crazy.
I wonder how much of it is that connection, though, of what we talked about earlier, which is, like, in high school, you feel like everything is the end of the world, and I don't know that that feeling really goes away.
Yeah.
I think it just starts
The
to
world just gets
feel
bigger.
yeah, the
Yeah.
world gets bigger and also your problems get bigger, and sometimes your
Yeah.
problems really are
Are
sort of the end of the
big.
world, like, for
Yeah.
real. Before it felt like it, now
No, like, they actually are. Yeah.
and I do wonder like, I still love teen TV, and I still think some of it's, like, the best TV on, and I do wonder how much of that is the fact that, like, it has that heightened level of, like, "Jesus Christ, please can I have a break?" Like,
Mhm.
just a minute.
Mhm. Yeah, I think I always used to say this in high school, the reason I loved, like, Gossip Girl and stuff so much was because I didn't have that drama, like, crazy drama in my life, so I
Mm.
enjoyed watching it on TV.
Ooh,
So
yeah.
maybe sometimes it's like, it puts your drama into perspective,
Yeah.
where you're like, "Oh, these people are going through crazy shit, like, I can handle my own shit," you know?
Yeah, yeah, and you have, like, the level of when you get into sort of the superhero of it all or the Riverdale alternate timelines and everything
Oh,
the
yeah.
time travel, there's there's so much where it's like, "Yeah, you know what? Maybe things are okay." Like,
Yeah.
um, or with Scream, there's not, someone hunting you down, like,
Yeah, it's
literally.
like I don't have an ex-boyfriend who wants to kill me with his friend,
Yeah,
hopefully.
hard pass.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed, but
Yeah, we're hoping that's true.
yeah. Yeah, I think I do think there's, like, a level of, like, importance when it comes to teen TV in general.
It's so formative too, like, your brain is still forming when you're in high school, so it's you're figuring out who you are as a person.
Yeah.
That's why I got into it because I wanted to help write stories for kids who are like, "What?"
Yeah. No, I think it's like I mean, I also think, like, doing this podcast, I've learned so much about what was formative for people and how important it is for people. Like, if you had never seen Scream, that's always my last question, which I hate to, like, I just it snuck up on us.
Oh my god, we're at the end.
Um, but, like, if you like, to put a button on it, like, if you had never seen Scream, what would be different about you?
Oh my god, everything. Like,
Yeah.
I feel like I wouldn't be as funny. I feel like I wouldn't have such a love for so many different things. I feel like I wouldn't there's something about Scream where it's like, you wanna watch the other horror movies it's referencing. I wouldn't have such, like, a desire to, like, learn more about other things and learn, like, this is a touchstone for this or,
Mm,
just, like, hungry to have a vast knowledge of not only horror movies, but, like, everything, I feel like
yeah.
now someone references a book, I'm like, "I gotta read that book," I just, like,
Mm,
a knowledge and a want to know
like
how everything informs something else, you know?
yeah.
Like, no story is really original anymore, but, like
Yeah, absolutely. And, like, I I asked you our last question anyway, but I think that opens up to, like, certain things. So, like, I am curious about kind of getting to explore that, and now you explore that professionally too.
Mm.
Like, do you feel like it did affect your understanding of story in general and, like, the ability to reference things like that?
Oh, 1,000%, and
Yeah.
on a show where we reference everything all the time,
Yeah.
it's like watching Scream is the best crash course for writing for Riverdale, I feel like. It for me personally, yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think, uh, we talked about this on the Stranger Things episode that we did as well, where it's the type of movie that makes you want to know the references, like,
Mhm.
it's that very, like, Captain America line in The Avengers where he's like, "Ah, I understood that one." Like
Yes. You're like, "Oh my god, I know what they're referencing."
yeah, where it feels like it opens it up where you watch one thing and it feels like a floodgate
Mhm.
almost. And to some degree, I think Scream has like a level of like it's almost a textbook of what to go back and watch.
Yeah. Oh, 1,000%.
Yeah.
And you have one of the greats, Wes Craven, it's his movie.
Yeah.
That what I will say about the newest Scream movie is he didn't direct it,
Mm.
and Kevin Williamson didn't write it, and you felt it.
Oh,
Yeah. A
yeah.
lot of people are like, "I loved it," and I was like, "I enjoyed it, but" you just felt that they weren't involved.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Something I think we kind of vaguely talked about where you were saying like Riverdale trends when something else gets canceled.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, I think something I've tried really hard to do, and I know a lot of my friends have tried to, and you've mentioned as well, is like to not speak negatively about content because even when it's not objectively good or for you it wasn't good, there's so much work that goes into it. And
Mhm.
I don't think people necessarily recognize how much work goes into writing an episode of television. Like, before it even goes to the actors, gets made, and gets produced, and every single piece of the, like, machine that goes into making a single episode of television, let alone 22 like you guys
Mhm.
make. Um, and then it goes from all of that work and all that time that you spend on it to being something that people binge really fast because it goes.
Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
we're spending weeks on a time on a specific episode, and you're watching it in 40 minutes.
Yeah, I'm curious if you want to talk a little bit about of, like, what actually goes in, not even necessarily the content, but just, like, the amount of work and thought that goes into making a single episode of Riverdale.
Yeah. So basically, it's a very collaborative process, as most writers' rooms are. You're basically pitching stories. Your boss comes in with an idea, and you're pitching off of the
Mm,
idea that he has. So, say in this episode, Veronica wants to open up the casino, the
yeah.
Babylonian casino. We did that last season. So then he's like, "This is what I want to happen. This should be a story with X character, and this is where I want the story to end. Let's build on that together." So then everyone's pitching, you're building on the story together. And then you do that for all of the characters in the episode. Sometimes they have character stories overlap, which is always really fun. And then it's just basically like beating it out even more, like what's happening in the scene? Is there any dialogue? It's
Yeah.
just so collaborative, all of it, and then you go off and write it. And then once you have the script, you send it to, like, the studio network, so Warner Brothers and CW, and they give you notes, so then you rewrite it, and then you bring it to production, and they're like, "Oh, we can't actually do this because of, production reasons." So then you rewrite that, and it just kind of it's never exactly what you start out with it
Mhm.
to be. So it's an interesting process, collaboration across the entire board, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, and I think also, like, you guys are managing so much of a story that's happened, and then you even had crossovers that you had to make sure you
Oh, yeah, like
understood.
Sabrina,
Yeah,
yeah. That
yeah.
was fun. I did the Sabrina episode, it was so fun.
Did you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think sometimes I think it's always good to remember that or to, like, look into that. I know, like, as when I was younger and, like, watching TV, that was something I got really obsessed with, was, like, understanding the process, and I was like, "Oh, I wanna be an engineer. I have no interest in working in entertainment, but I'm gonna spend hours." It's like
Like, looking this up,
it's like
yeah.
this. Yeah, yeah, sure,
Mhm,
you had no interest. But, like, that understanding of, like, how much thought goes in, like, is always brings me back to what you said, which is, like, if you think it might be intentional, it was.
mhm.
Like, there's no way it wasn't.
Yeah.
Like,
To a point, though, because I will
yeah.
see some people tweeting online, I'm like, "That wasn't intentional," but I love that you think it was, you know what I mean? I'm
Yeah.
like, "Genius." You're a genius in your own sense if you're
Yeah.
putting all those pieces together.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it is something that's cool about that show is how it is one of the more recent things I can think of that does remind me of what media was like when we were younger, which is that, like, people watching it every week, which I don't think happens a lot
Mm,
anymore. Like,
mhm.
I do see people watching it every episode, and I do see people trying to figure out what's gonna happen next.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's because we always have a murder mystery too, which I
Yeah, that's true.
appreciate. I think that's really fun. The writing, obviously, it takes a while. Then it's like the cast, and it's like they have to do their wardrobe fittings. They
Mhm.
have to memorize their lines. And then the crew, it's like there could be some PA on set who's there for like 20 hours.
Yeah.
It's like that's why I always try not to like badmouth anything because it's like there's somebody there who was crying at work that day.
Oh,
You know what
yeah.
I mean? Who was like, I hate my life. Like, I just need to get through this work day. And it's like, I would never want to like crush their soul and then be like, "That was the worst thing I've ever seen." And they're like, "Well, that was the worst day of my life." So,
So I'm so glad I went through that for you.
yeah, so for you to just trash talk,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's always, or at least I hope. I mean, I'm sure there's an exception to every rule, but I think there's always a lot of heart and a lot of effort that goes into making media.
Yeah.
Um,
Even if it's not a perfect movie or a perfect TV show, maybe there's one scene that you get something from, or there's one line of dialogue that resonates with you, and I just, like I don't know, that's how I try and live life, you
yeah.
know?
It's neither highbrow nor lowbrow.
Bro,
It's never bad nor good, but
there's
sometimes it's
something in
good.
everything.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's good, and sometimes it's not bad because we don't say that.
Yeah, sometimes there was something
There
to
was
gain.
something
You could pick
there.
a scene.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm trying to consume media more like that, to be less like, "Oh, I really hated that," but to find, like, the little things, like, that there is something positive usually, hopefully, that
Yeah.
you can find out of everything.
Yeah.
Um,
Or a positive is, I'm never gonna do it that way.
yeah, but then you still learn it still gave you something.
Insight, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I do think the last thing we should talk about is just to kind of double ask my question of whether your life would be different if you hadn't watched Scream. Do you think you would have ended up in TV if you hadn't watched Scream?
Ooh. Yes, probably
Yeah.
but 'cause of Dexter, though.
Mm,
But I don't know if I would have had the same, like, sensibility if I hadn't watched Scream. Do you know what I
yeah.
mean? I don't think I would have approached my writing or approached the way that I pitch stuff or even approached the way that I watch and consume media if I hadn't seen Scream.
Mm,
It, like, rocked my world, and it's still, like, my favorite movie to this day,
yeah.
like, I am obsessed with it.
You're wearing a beautiful Scream 2
I'm wearing a
t-shirt right
Scream 2
now.
t-shirt. It's amazing. Yeah, I
Yeah.
love that. I just love Scream so
Oh,
much.
well, I'm glad you checked it out of a but that's not even the right word. You rented it from a
Blockbuster.
Blockbuster,
Thank you,
checked it out.
Blockbuster.
Yeah, we miss you, RIP. Well, there's one left.
Oh, yeah, there is
Yeah,
one.
so
Yeah,
thank you to that one
Blockbuster.
remaining store. Uh, and yeah, no, I think it's cool. I think you've created like a really cool worldview for yourself. And the thing that I really love and personally will take away from this is this idea of experiencing highbrow and lowbrow at the same time. And that there's always a little bit of both. Because I think what's cool about that is that like media doesn't have to take itself too seriously to be serious and it doesn't have to be too silly to be silly. Like you can mix both.
Mhm.
And sometimes that's the best
It works out
version of
really
it.
well.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, thank you so much, Chrissy, for
Oh my
joining
god, thank
me.
you for having me. You're, like, such a good podcast host. This was so fun.
Honestly, thank you so much because I'm always nervous. I don't know if I should
Oh my
admit that,
god, don't
but
be. I was nervous too, but I
yeah.
couldn't tell you were nervous.
Well, thank you so much. It's the constant level of anxiety that it just seems normal.
Yeah. It's like watching a horror movie. You're just anxious.
All the
Yeah.
time,
Mhm.
yeah. Well, I will be watching mm, less horror movies than I watched to prepare for this podcast, but but I really had a great time and I'm glad you joined us.
Yay, thank you so much.
If you'd like to hang out with me between now and then, or just let me know what you thought about this episode, you can find me on all social media at Marissa Kamari. You can also subscribe to my newsletter, which I release an issue of every week with this podcast by visiting our website, tandemproductions.com. Until next Wednesday, I hope you are enjoying what you love.